Welcome gamers to another edition of Gamer Zone, where we play games, talk games, and share with you the latest in gaming. With me, Yume Suryani. This week on Gamer Zone, we'll be exploring the horror side of gaming. Survival horror genre like Resident Evil and Silent Hill has always been in the spotlight, especially for gamers that love to scare themselves or even who wanted to test their bravery. But there are other horror games that have been released throughout the years that has had an impact towards the game industry, be it a AAA games or even indie developed game. We'll get right on that, but first, let's hear the latest in gaming news. Hood Outlaws and Legends is an action game developed by Sumo Newcastle and published by Focus Home Interactive. It is a multiplayer game played from a third-person perspective, and the player will assume control of an outlaw who must infiltrate a castle or keep off a powerful power figure named the State, and compete against rival team to steal the treasure hidden in the keep's vault. And the final game that is free on the PS Plus is Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is a deck building game developed by American studio Megacrete and published by Humble Bundle. In the game, players are given a choice of 4 characters that will attempt to climb a spire with multiple floors created through a procedural generation, battling enemies and different bosses. MYTV is a retro 2D action RPG in which you play as Bellwilder to retrieve souls of missing people and restore the world's fallen civilization. It is inspired by Quintet Enix classics such as Souls Blazer and Terranigma. The developer, Stellanol, is from our neighboring country of Indonesia. It's a small development team from Indonesia consisting of industry professionals who strive to turn fresh ideas into enjoyable creation. MYTV will be released to the Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series X, and PC via Steam and Epic Game Store on April 21st. Okay gamers, now we are on our next segment. Our list of horror games. Ridley Scott made the first Alien movie back in 1979 and started the whole survivor horror sci-fi as a genre, wherein a group of people is hunted by an unseen forces. It turned out that was the perfect recipe for a horror game, and 35 years later, the Alien Isolation game was released in 2014. Set 15 years after the original Alien film, the players take control of Amanda Ripley, the daughter of Alan Ripley, an engineer who sets out to recover the flight recorder from her mother's ship. Other than aliens, Amanda also encounters other types of enemies throughout the space station, such as hostile human survivors and androids. Players can either fight them or avoid them using stealth or distraction. However, the alien creature cannot be defeated, so it's an ultimatum of using stealth to avoid them at all costs. Outlast was first released for the PC back in 2013. At first, we had the Resident Evil and Silent Hill vibe, but as the game was released and we got to play the game, it was entirely different. We were stunted by the gameplay that we are not given a weapon to fight back. Instead, we are only equipped with a camcorder with night vision. The game is played from a first-person perspective and features a lot of stealth mechanics. Unlike most games, the player's health are not visible, and if caught and dies, the player resets at the most recent checkpoint. Outlast has sequels along with DLCs. The DLC for the first game is titled Whistleblower, and the sequel is Outlast 2. A prequel is in development set for 2022 release titled The Outlast Trials. Fatal Frame, or also known as Project Zero, is a survival horror video game developed by Tecmo for the PS2, released in 2001. It was later re-released in North America on the PlayStation Network in 2013. Fatal Frame is set within an abandoned Japanese mansion, divided into 4 chapters and a prologue which act as levels and tutorial. The player is given control of Miku Hinasaki as you navigate through a dark environment and armed with a flashlight, and to fight hostile ghosts, you will be using the Camera Obscura, an antique camera that can capture ghosts. Fatal Frame spawned 2 sequels, Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly, and Fatal Frame 3, The Tormented. Other than that, Fatal Frame also inspired the next game in the list, which is Dread Out. Dread Out is a survival horror game developed by Digital Happiness, a developer based in Indonesia. The story is about a group of high school students in Indonesia who came across an old abandoned town, where they are confronted by ghosts and paranormal activities. The protagonist is Linda, begins to uncover the secret of the town and the surrounding area. Dread Out is a third-person horror game that uses mechanics similar to Fatal Frame. However, instead of the camera obscura, the player is using her smartphone and a digital camera to fend off the ghosts. The unique thing about Dread Out isn't in its gameplays or story, but the culture it portrays that include the Indonesian mythical ghosts and lore, which coincidentally is familiar to players from the Southeast Asian background, meaning you will feel the similarity of the lore and myth portrayed in the game. The sequel is Dread Out 2, where we follow Linda as she is the only survivor from the first game. Explore through high school as she suffers from survivor's guilt and fight off the returning nightmare as the evil forces from the first game returns to haunt her. Limbo is a puzzle platform game developed by independent studio Playdead and released in the year 2010. Limbo is a 2D side-scroller game that incorporates physics system that governs environmental objects and the player character. The player guides an unnamed boy through dangerous environment and traps as he searches for his sister. The game style is minimalist with tons of black and white and uses light, film grains effects, and minimal ambient sound to create the eerie atmosphere. The story of Limbo is about a nameless boy who awakens in the middle of the forest on the edge of hell, where he encounters a giant spider who tries to kill him. And the adventure starts from there as it is revealed that he is looking for his missing sister. The Evil Within. At first glance, it was relatively accepted as another AAA horror game, since it was directed by the series creator of the Resident Evil series, Shinji Mikami. But as the game was released to the mainstream gamers in 2014, it was a whole other game all on itself. Standing as a horror game created by the team that made Resident Evil, it presented itself in its own classification of genre, as it is more nightmarish and distorted world filled with horrid creatures akin to Silent Hill, but more horrid and more disfigured enemies. But it's more Lovecraft with its eldritch monsters and bosses. The player is given control of Crimson City Police Detective Sergeant Sebastian Castellanes and his partner Joseph Oda and Junior Detective Julie Kidman that find themselves thrown into a surreal world after hearing a high-pitched noise. Sebastian is separated from his party and is forced to flee from a monstrous man wielding a chainsaw. This is where the story of the game starts, and you will have to fight horrid monsters and defeat enemy bosses, all the while trying to solve the mystery of the other world and saving the city. Last but not least, let's head out into the final frontier, which is space, and we are fighting necromorphs. Dead Space is a game developed by EA Redwood Shores and released back in 2008. It drew inspiration from well-known horror franchise Resident Evil and the Silent Hill series. The game is set on a mining spaceships overrun by monsters known as necromorphs, and the players are given control of engineer Isaac Clarke from a third-person perspective as he maneuvers through the spaceships, fight the monsters, and struggles with increasing psychosis. Players are given objectives to complete by solving physics-based puzzles within the environment. In the vacuum, Isaac has limited air supply, which can be replenished by finding air tanks within the map. These are one of the many challenges you will face as you play through the game. Dead Space is set to have a remake and will be released sometime in 2023 with better graphics, with the same gameplay and storyline. And that's it for our list today. We'll see you right after this. This week, we recommend you to try this little indie game from Kinetic Games called Phasmophobia. If you ever wonder what it would feel like to be a ghost hunter, why not try this? Phasmophobia is a horror investigation survival game that can be played either solo or with friends for up to 4 players. You are tasked to complete a contract in which you must identify the type of ghost haunting the specified site. The players can communicate through voice chat, both locally within a short distance and globally via a walkie-talkie. Phasmophobia features speech recognition that allows certain pieces of equipment and even ghosts to hear players speaking and understand certain keywords. Completing objectives and gathering evidence provide a payout, which includes leveling up, unlocking of maps, and earn money. You better try this game and join the fun as you hunt ghosts either alone or with friends. Scorn is a first-person biopunk survival horror adventure game developed by AB Software for the PC and Xbox Series X. The game is heavily inspired by the visual works of H.R. Giger and Zdzislaw Bezinski. The player controls a skinless humanoid lost in fictional nightmarish alien planet filled with odd creatures and living techno-organic structure composed of steel, flesh, and bone. The player will explore different interconnected regions in a non-linear fashion, searching for answers that will explain more about the game's world. The game was initially scheduled to be released in autumn 2021, but the delay was announced and is set to be released sometime in 2022. And that's it, gamers. That's it for this week's update. Don't forget to tune in to our show again next week. Same time, same place. Only on Gamer Zone. Eat, sleep, game, repeat. See ya!